everyone, it's Michelle and welcome back to the Royal Daily Tea. I hope everyone had a lovely last couple of days. I certainly took a nice little break. We have so much royal news to cover today, so we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. So you know what to do. Sit back and relax, grab yourself a beverage, and let's get into the Royal Daily Tea. So we have some interesting royal history news. A Paris mansion that was formerly owned by the Duke and Duchess of Windsor is now being turned into a public attraction and museum. Now, they made this announcement just a few days before King Charles and Queen Camilla were set to undertake their very first official visit to France. Now, unfortunately, King Charles and Queen Camilla had to cancel their trip to Paris due to the ongoing riots and protesters that are happening in the streets of Paris. However, the Paris City Council has given the Heritage Trust Foundation the task of turning the rundown house, originally known as the Chateau Le Bois, into a permanent touristic site. The 19th century mansion is located in the Boulogne woods of western Paris, is primarily known for having hosted the exiled Duke and Duchess of Windsor for over 3 decades. Now, we do know that Egyptian businessman Mohammed Al-Fayed famously purchased this house and he renamed it Villa Windsor, and he actually did a huge remodel of the house. His idea was he was trying to ingratiate himself with the royal family because as an Egyptian businessman, he was still not accepted in British high society. Now, we all know he is the father of Dodi Al-Fayed, the gentleman who passed away with Princess Diana in a Paris car crash in August of 1997. Now, he did refurbish the house as a gift kind of to the royal family. However, it didn't really pan out for him the way he had wanted it to. Instead, the royal family came and took back a whole bunch of precious artifacts that technically Edward VIII was not supposed to have. He had his royal box with his insignia. He had a couple of, art pieces that really belonged to the royal family. So when Queen Elizabeth went to visit, she was not a happy camper when she noticed that he definitely had artifacts that he probably should not have had. Now, the villa became the residence of the former King Edward VIII and his wife, American socialite Wallis Simpson, in 1953, a full 17 years after he abdicated the throne. Now, the city had given the Windsors the villa for a very small nominal fee in return for renovation. Now, Wallis Simpson redid the house with the help of a very famous interior designer by the name of Stephanie Bowden, who later worked with Jackie Kennedy on the White House. Now, this very secluded mansion has 14 rooms and is located on 2 acres of gardens. Now, Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Charles both visited the home back in the 70s. It is said that Prince Charles headed to Paris to meet with his great uncle under the advice of his mentor, Lord Louis Mountbatten, in 1970 when King Charles was only 22 years old. Now, King Charles wrote in his diary that he found the place to be interesting and that the Duchess was very well kept together. He said, while we were talking, the Duchess kept flitting to and fro like a strange bat. She looks incredible for her age and obviously has had a facelift. I found footmen and pages wearing identical uniforms to the ones ours wear at home. It was rather pathetic. So I do find it very interesting how he abdicated the throne. He still wanted to have some kind of role supporting the crown, but of course they denied him. He became the Duke of Windsor, so they went and traveled all throughout Europe. And then he still had his little red box with his insignia. He had those pieces of art that he technically wasn't supposed to have, important personal letters that I believe the Queen confiscated after his death. And here King Charles is visiting his uncle, and he notices that the staff and footmen or trying to replicate the look of the staff in the royal households. This totally reminds me of Harry and Meghan trying to recreate the royal life, the royal court in America, much like the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, who were trying to recreate a royal court in Paris. They have so many similarities, guys. It's eerie. Now we know that Mr. Al Fayed, he really was trying to bring back this house that he renamed Villa Windsor back to its grandeur and glory, and he was trying to pay respect to the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. I believe many pieces of their art were still in the house when he purchased it. But he did an interview with People magazine in the 1990s, and he said, quote, "Sometimes this residence gives you the creeps," following the death of both the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, but he added it remained a very happy place. So apparently both the Duke and Duchess of Windsor did unfortunately pass away in this Paris mansion, but it's going to be open to the public. So if you are interested in going to see a piece of, I guess, royal history, it would be interesting to see where they spent the last years of their life living in exile. So in my opinion, Prince William is definitely the people's prince, and he is going to make a great king. Now we know that Prince William had a surprise 2-day trip to Poland where he visited British and Polish troops, Ukrainian refugees, and had a visit with the Polish President Andrzej Duda, and made a very poignant visit to the tomb of the unknown soldier in Warsaw. He is very much stepping in the footsteps of his grandmother, the late Queen Elizabeth II. I think she is so proud of him, and you can tell the difference between a future king and a spare. There's just no comparison. Now, this was considered a very important and significant trip. A royal commentator by the name of Richard Fitzwilliams noted the significance of the trip lay with him, quote, being the ideal diplomat to visit such a sensitive area. It shows Britain cares and is the ultimate use of soft power. He also said it definitely boosted his global profile as such visit carries worldwide interest. William's Poland trip comes 6 months after he became the Prince of Wales and underscores his ambition to build his brand as he focuses on preparing to succeed his beloved father in the not-so-distant future. Again, this is a definite king in the making. He definitely has a lot of his mother's qualities as well. And to see these wonderful interactions with him and the troops and the children, again, in my opinion, he is going to make a fine king. Now, on another part of that visit, Prince William stuns onlookers as he dines at an LGBT restaurant during a surprise Poland trip. So Prince William, who packed a very high profile over his 2 days, made a very surprise entrance into an LGBT restaurant where he shared a meal with his Kensington staff. The Prince of Wales amazed fellow diners as he was spotted at the Betterow Bistro in Warsaw. Pictures taken by a local show the royal sitting around a table with a few members of his staff, and William can be seen placing an order while speaking to the waiter. Now, apparently, the LGBT community is under attack in Poland, so the fact he chose to eat at this eatery has a big message and impact for that community. They also joked William was wondering what to order before adding the service here is great and helped. The lucky diner continued, it was valuable that he supported the community so abused by the current authorities in Poland. See, in my opinion, he just looks like one of the people. He's not pretentious, and apparently he ordered a meal that was around 8 pounds compared to, I think, a $1,500 salad that Harry and Meghan were said to have enjoyed last week at some very high-level restaurant in California. So it looks like Prince Harry is in a little bit of hot water now that his famous drug use is coming back to bite him in his royal arse. This is what happens when you share too much information. It's called TMI, Harry. TMI. Well, now it is coming back in full force, and people are asking the question, how did you get a visa when you are a known drug abuser, where you freely admitted to taking quite a few illegal substances, not only as a youth in the UK, but also while you have been living in the United States? There have been famous people like Amy Winehouse and Nigella Larson who have been denied entry into the United States because of their admitted drug use. And here we have a royal prince who literally talked about sucking all of the laughing gas while his wife was in labor, talks about taking hallucinogen mushrooms and talking toilets, cocaine, and rampant marijuana use. Not to mention, I'm sure he's taken a whole bunch of other drugs that we may or may not know about. Now, the problem is when you're here on a visa, there are certain guidelines and rules you have to follow, like you can't break the law or you could be deported. Now, some of those substances that he has talked about are technically illegal. That could get him in some major trouble with the immigration office. Now, we all know he's a prince and he has a lot of privilege, and he's getting special treatment because Meghan and Harry always get special treatment. You know, they cry victimhood, but these two are anything but victims. Their privilege is showing. And so now a lot of people are up in arms. There's a group called the Heritage Foundation who wants to investigate his actual entry application and documents into the United States to see if Harry truthfully admitted his drug-using past. Well, I can guarantee you he didn't. Now, if it comes out that he lied on his application, could he be deported? Technically, yes, because there's supposed to be no exception even for royalty. It could be revoked. We don't know what kind of visa. Is it a 90-day fiance, a spousal visa, a work visa? We don't really know what kind of documentation or visa he is here on, but he is a royal prince, and I guarantee you it won't become public. But we already know he lied on that application because nobody with that kind of history of drug use would be allowed to come here on a visa. I mean, they didn't admit Amy Winehouse. She was pretty famous. So why did Harry get special treatment? Now, in my opinion, Harry and Meghan really need to learn to shut their pie hole. This has not been a good look for them, talking about rubbing his frozen Todger with Elizabeth Arden cream and the way he thinks that Meghan is magical and she sings to seals and he talks to toilets and he takes drugs. I mean, who thought that was a good idea? Anyone? I mean, again, apparently they don't have a PR team around them. Yes, they sold a lot of copies in the very, very beginning, but we all know those numbers were fudged. They're not true. They were literally giving people 2 books for the price of 1. These books are already in charity shops and at TJ Maxx. They forced people for his pay-per-view event, where he was literally crying for your money, to get a book. So I don't believe his book really has those number of sales. But again, in my opinion, this was TMI, and it is going to come back to bite them in the butt. Make no mistake, people in America are sick of these two, and they are fighting to get those documents. So it'll be very interesting to see if we actually can see those public documents and if it's going to affect Harry staying here in America. This might be what we need, guys, to boot these two out of the country. Although I have to say, I still believe they're going to get special treatment and they're not going to be deported. But the Heritage Foundation is not backing down, so we will have to wait and see what happens. Well, it appears Meghan, I have a lot to say, Markle wants to pen a memoir. That's right, Meghan Markle wants to turn those secret diaries into a bestseller, much like her husband, Prince Harry. She saw the success that he had with his memoir, Spare, and now she wants to duplicate it in her own memoir because Meghan, the woman who has been silenced, who hasn't stopped talking, apparently feels she has more to say, more victimhood cards to play, because we don't know the real Meghan. We don't know the real story of how everyone is just so mean to her. So apparently, according to the royal sources, Meghan wants to detail her life behind the palace doors as a woman of color, a biracial princess who was mistreated by the tabloids and the press, but she also wants to give a lot of in-depth information about the royal family, her relationships, especially with Catherine, you know, the girl she's literally obsessed with, Camilla, Charles, Big Bro Willie, and talk about her victimhood once again, because apparently we haven't heard it all. No, we haven't heard everything that Meghan wrote in her little diary. You know, the lip gloss story. We all know 100% that Meghan made Harry put that in his book, because why would Harry care about a damn lip gloss that Kate didn't want to share with Meghan? That's a totally Meghan story. 100%. Just like oh, Kate doesn't like to hug. Oh, I was in the kitchen barefoot cooking up the chicken. You know, those stupid petty stories. So this entire book is going to be a whole bunch of Kate looked at me wrong today. Kate didn't tell me that I was pretty. Oh my God, Kate didn't ask questions about suits. I'm so offended. Yeah, it's going to be a bunch of that. You know, the whole, you know, were you silent or were you silenced? Even though this woman has literally not shut up in, 5 years that she's been a part of the royal family? Now, according to Express, they did a poll where they polled almost 10,000 people, and only 2% of those people were even remotely interested in reading anything that Miss Markle had to say. So it's going to be interesting to see if this book actually is produced, when it's going to be out to the public. I think maybe later this year, maybe next year. But again, there's rumors she's, you know, reopening the Teague. She's not going anywhere, folks. Unfortunately, this woman doesn't embarrass, which I think she should. Her husband has stuck his foot in his mouth with his TMI in his book, which could get him deported. But no, Meghan has more that she wants to say. So apparently the docuseries wasn't enough. So we'll have to wait and see what she does, what she says, and if the book actually materializes. So there's going to be another royal book that you might want to add to your collection. Prince Harry's memoir is set to be mocked in a new released Frostbite and All biography, Spare Us. It's a new Harrity that promises to go deep inside the castle walls. Now, I, for one, am very excited about this parody. They're mocking and making fun of Prince Harry and his frozen toddler and his book, The Spare. Now, the cover of the new book, Spare Us, mocks the front of the original, featuring a picture of the prince's face with a piece of tape over his mouth, which, quite frankly, I find to be an awesome look. Now, the book reads, quote, "All I ever wanted was privacy, and in order to get it, it seemed that an exceptionally detailed 500,000-word book was in order. He was born into an ancient, powerful dynasty, and through no fault of his own, became one of the most recognizable men on the planet. His life was a constant barrage of press intrusion and manipulation until, finally, he demanded that it stop. In order to get the privacy he so craved, he has written a frostbitten book that goes deep inside the castle walls and exposes every shouting match, fist fight, betrayal, teddy bear, awkward hug, and tear-stained wedding rehearsal for the world to feast their eyes on, all for the privacy This is his story. This sounds like a really fun book. I believe they said it's being released on April 6th, although I did hear reports of April Fools, which I think would be hilarious. So I am looking forward to this book coming out. Now we know this book is in a long line of people like SNL and South Park. People are definitely coming for the Sussexes. I think everyone has just reached their fill. But I, for one, am excited to hear and see this book, and I hope it's a bestseller. Well, that is all the royal news that I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave me your comments, guys, down below, and be sure to check out my other YouTube channel, Royal Daily Tea History and Fashion. I am working on Corinna and the King episode 3. I promise it is coming out this weekend. And please be sure to check out all of my other social media accounts. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye, guys.